your latest in business and finance from ABC News Now.
Watching live coverage of the opening bell on ABC News Now. Ringing the bell this morning, Bill DeRoche, CEO of FFCM. And there is the opening bell for this Tuesday, September 27th. Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Sy in New York. Dow futures were up again this morning following yesterday's big jump. Here to talk about all of the day's market headlines is Sheila Dhamarajan from Bloomberg TV. Hey, Sheila, good to see you.
Good morning, Stephanie.
So it looks like the second straight day in the green. What is moving markets right now?
Well, Stephanie, I have one word for you, and that is optimism. Investors feeling very, very optimistic that the European leaders will basically get their act together and solve the region's debt crisis. We've been hearing this from leaders all around the world. We had Timothy Geithner here saying that European leaders are going to be using more force to solve their problems. Then we also had another major ECB board member saying that if you let one of the regions default, that would be the equivalent of voting for suicide. So we're hearing a lot of strong language around solving this European debt crisis here, and that is giving investors optimism that we won't have a default on their hand. Stephanie, I do have one tidbit for you, though, and this kind of gives you a little bit of the flavor around the politics of the situation here. You know, I mentioned Tim Geithner saying that European leaders need to use a lot of force to solve these issues. Well, one ECB official actually fired back at him saying that, look, it's a lot easier to talk about these issues and actually having to implement the plans. So you can see it's certainly a situation fraught with politics. Having said all that, investors definitely feeling a lot of optimism today that people will get their act together and that we will not see a default out of the European region.
In the first 60 seconds of trading, Sheila, the market already up 160 points. We don't hear that word a lot these days, so we're excited about it. And part of it has to do with what German Chancellor Angela Merkel said, I understand. What did she say about how Germany will back Greece?
Well, you know, she said that she really stepped up her defense of the euro. She said it's really important for the euro to exist and exist as one region. She really toned down some of the punishing remarks that she had towards Greece and letting it default, really calling for a lot of union between all the countries, saying, look, we need to act as one united region, not as a set of individual countries. Also saying that she will back the EFSF until July 21st.
Okay, switching gears a little bit here. Home prices, they are showing some seasonal strength. Can you tell us about the numbers were just released this morning?
Yeah, so we got numbers from the Case-Shiller Index this morning, and this is basically an index that takes into account the property value of houses in 20 major U.S. cities. Now, the good news is that the prices actually fell a little bit less than expected. The bad news is prices are still down 4.1% from a year ago. So perhaps, you know, as you were saying, we have some of those seasonal adjustments here. Some of those default processing mortgages may have taken a little bit longer than expected. The bottom line is that when you step back and take a look at the big picture, housing is still very much in a depressed state. You know, prices down 4.1% from a year ago. We've been talking about housing issues for the past 2 or 3 years plaguing the country, and we're not seeing a whole lot of signs yet that we're climbing out of that. So perhaps 1 month a little bit better than expected, but the big picture is still pretty ugly when it comes to housing, Stephanie.
Absolutely. Okay, Sheila, Warren Buffett, he's buying back shares of his own stock in Berkshire Hathaway. What's the message behind that move?
Yeah, and it's a really significant move by Warren Buffett because it's the first time ever that he is actually authorizing a share buyback program for Berkshire Hathaway. A couple of details here. He is willing to buy back Class A and Class B shares of Berkshire Hathaway, and basically saying he's willing to pay a 10% premium to the book value. That's a metric that he uses to value the stock to the current prices. Now, we saw a big pop in Berkshire Hathaway prices on the back of that news. As for the message, you know, we've been talking to a lot of investors and analysts about this. They say, one, really a very strong statement on how cheap Warren Buffett thinks Berkshire Hathaway is. I mean, for him to actually do this program into action, to take the time and effort to do that, means that there must be a lot of reward at the end of the day. So he thinks that Berkshire Hathaway shares are deeply undervalued. Two, a lot of people saying, look, this is actually a pretty optimistic outlook for the U.S. economy. If Warren Buffett really thought that things were falling off a cliff, that we have another disaster on our hands, he would probably be in cash hoarding mode. He'd want to hold on to that cash to see what he could pick up if things were to get really bad. So the fact that he's actually willing to spend the money means that he is somewhat optimistic on the future of the U.S. economy.
That's why they call him the Oracle. The SEC, Sheila, is now looking into a rating that the S&P gave to a mortgage bond deal. What's going on there?
Yeah, certainly the ratings agency has been under a lot of fire for the ratings that they gave to a lot of these CBOs, collateralized debt obligations around the mortgage industry. There is one in particular called Delphinius that the SEC is focusing on, saying that they may actually take enforcement action against the S&P, for this rating. Now, this is significant because this is the first time ever that the SEC has taken such action against a ratings agency. So certainly adding to a lot of the fire around the ratings agency and the role they played in the crisis in 2008. But the first time ever move for the SEC to perhaps take enforcement action, that's a big deal that people will be watching to see how it turns out.
Yeah, that's going to make headlines. A federal watchdog agency is faulting Freddie Mac for its handling of defaulted mortgages. What's going on there?
Yeah, so the federal watchdog is called give me a second to get this right. It's the FHFA. A lot of initials there, but it stands for the Federal Housing Financial Agency.
Right.
So the inspector general of that agency actually put out a report today saying that there were deep flaws in the way that Freddie Mac actually looked at these mortgages, and saying that the agencies didn't do enough to prevent any sort of default on the mortgages. Again, a very big deal for them to actually publish in a report that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae didn't do enough on their part to prevent some of the crisis that we saw happening. Remember, both Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, under U.S. government conservatorship, have been so since about 2008 here. It's a big deal because it matters to me and you, Stephanie. Both of these agencies, Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, have drawn down on $170 billion of taxpayer money.
Right.
So now we are starting to get some more clarity around their processes. Obviously, a lot down the road in terms of how they're going to clean that up.
Okay. Oil has been in a bit of a slump lately, but prices up again today. Are they just tracking the market?
Absolutely. So we are seeing oil prices up today a couple of points. So right now we're at around $82 a barrel. But overall, as you said, oil prices have been a slump. Remember, it wasn't so long ago that we were talking about oil above $100 a barrel. So perhaps some optimism today that, U.S. economic growth and global growth overall isn't slowing down as much as people thought as a result of the European debt crisis. Having said that, you can see that there has been certainly a drop in oil prices over the past 6 months or so, and that is over worries around global growth.
Anything else you keeping an eye on today, Sheila?
Yeah, Google Plus, actually. I don't know if you're a big user of Facebook.
I am. I use both.
So you're a member of Google Plus here, and now you have joined the general public in using Google Plus as well. So they actually opened up their gates to the general public as a whole to join into Google Plus. And what we're hearing in terms of some traffic stats are that traffic has actually increased 13-fold just in the past week alone after they opened it up to the broader public. So certainly this battle between Facebook and Google Plus seems to be heating up a little bit. Of course, it's going to take some time to see who's going to win or if Google Plus can actually be a real second player here. But certainly these traffic numbers given some signs of optimism for the company.
You going to sign up, Sheila? Should I be adding you to my circles?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's take one more look at the Dow right now. Wow, Sheila, trading up almost 2%.
Yeah, we have a big rally on our hands here. Dow Jones Industrial Average up over 200 points, gaining about 2% here. NASDAQ, S&P as well, solid gains of about 1.5% here. So if we can hold on to these gains for the entire day, we are looking at another rally, another day in the green, which is certainly a big deal considering the market rout that we had last week, Stephanie.
Okay, the buzzword of the day, optimism. Let's see if it holds. Sheila Dhamarajan from Bloomberg TV. Thanks a lot, Sheila. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Whether the Dow ends the day up or down, there are some on Wall Street who won't be happy either way. Protesters who've been gathering in New York's financial district are now into their second week, rallying against corporate greed and social inequality. Organizers say they're upset by the bank bailouts and the mortgage crisis. Dozens of people were arrested during a march on Saturday, but the weekday protests have been peaceful. Those self-serve lines at the grocery store are starting to vanish. Supermarket chains are finding people prefer to have their food rung up by an actual cashier. Self-serve lines were designed for faster service, but people seem to feel they end up getting delayed by all the technical complications. It's going to get more expensive to produce the next season of Jersey Shore, but not because Snooki and company are demanding new raises. New Jersey Governor Chris Christie has pulled a tax credit which producers got for filming in the Garden State. The amount, $420,000. Of course, that's just a drop in the bucket compared to what the show generates for MTV.